Every child draws. You don't teach them how. You don't show them examples. You just give them a crayon and paper, and they make something. A 3-year-old draws a circle and tells you it's a dinosaur. A 5-year-old draws a house with a sun in the corner. A 7-year-old draws their family, each person distinct, with emotion on their faces. It doesn't matter if they're in Tokyo or Toronto or Lagos, if they're rich or poor, if they speak English or Mandarin. The drawing happens. And then it stops.
Somewhere between age 8 and 10, most kids put down the crayon. Not because they lose the ability, not because they get bored, but because something inside their brain shifts, and suddenly they know they're not good at it. Parents watch this happen, and they're confused. Your kid loved drawing. Now they won't even try. They say, "I'm bad at art." And you ask, "Who told you that?" And they can't answer, because nobody did. They just know.
The real answer is stranger. Because what's actually happening is that your child's brain is developing a new system, a system that makes them intelligent and self-aware. But that same system is the one that kills creativity. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that thinks about thinking. In young children, this part of the brain is barely online. A 4-year-old draws what they feel without questioning it. They're not thinking about whether it's good or bad. They're thinking about what it feels like to draw it. But between ages 8 and 12, the prefrontal cortex starts waking up. It begins connecting to the regions that process social information and self-evaluation. And at the same time, another system develops. It's called the anterior insula. It's what makes you feel embarrassment, what makes you aware that other people are watching you. Combine those two systems waking up together, and something new emerges: self-consciousness, the ability to step outside yourself and see yourself as others see you. This is essential for social functioning. But when you're aware of yourself being watched, even if you're the one watching, your creative capacity shrinks. Your thinking becomes more cautious, more rule-bound. When a 7-year-old draws, they're in flow, attention entirely on the paper. When an 11-year-old draws, part of their attention is on an imagined audience. Part of them is watching themselves draw and judging it in real time. And there's one more piece. Around the same age, kids develop what psychologists call realism. Up until about age 8, a child understands that art is representation. A circle represents a person. A blue scribble represents water. But as their brain develops, that changes. They want their drawings to match what they see in the world. A 7-year-old draws a stick figure and feels completely satisfied. An 11-year-old draws the same stick figure and immediately sees what it's not. The gap between what they can do and what they want to do suddenly becomes visible. And that gap feels like failure. This is the core of what kills childhood creativity. Not lack of talent, not lack of interest, but the collision between emerging self-awareness and newly realistic standards. Now, here's what's important. This doesn't happen everywhere at the same rate. In Japan and Scandinavia, creative decline happens later and less dramatically, because their education systems emphasize process over outcome. The goal is not to create a masterpiece. The goal is to practice the discipline of creation. And in cultures where children are exposed to less social comparison, the decline is less severe. This tells us something crucial. The decline isn't inevitable. It's not just biology. It's the interaction between biology and environment. There's also research from psychologist Carol Dweck on exactly this. When adults praise children for talent, "You're so good at drawing," kids become more cautious, more afraid to try something hard. Because if you're naturally talented, failure is a threat to your identity.
But when children are praised for effort, you worked really hard on that. They become more willing to take risks, more willing to try and fail. because the praise was about the process, not the outcome. Kids who receive process-based praise are significantly more likely to continue creating into adolescence. So here's what's actually happening when your child stops drawing. Their brain is developing. They're gaining the ability to see themselves as others see them. Those are signs of healthy development. But at the same time, they're learning, whether anyone says it or not, that their natural, unself-conscious creativity is not good enough. The question isn't why they stop. The question is why some kids don't. And the answer is simple. Somewhere in their environment, someone taught them that the process matters more than the outcome. If you have children, here's what this means. The moment your kid becomes self-conscious about their art is exactly the moment to double down on creative practice. Praise effort. Praise exploration. Ask them about the process, not the product. How did you decide that color?
What was it like drawing that? Create an environment where the act of creating is valued more than the result. And if you stopped creating as a child, your brain didn't lose the ability. It just learned to be self-critical about it. Self-criticism is useful for many things, but it is the enemy of creation, and it can be unlearned. Every child is an artist. By age 10, most of them stop. Not because they lose talent, but because their brain developed faster than their confidence. The tragedy isn't that it happens. The tragedy is that we don't talk about it. And that's something we can fix if we know it's happening.